All right, welcome back to another Mask Monday. I'm gonna show you a quick tip today. Today, I'm just gonna show you like how I trim up a mask and Dremel it, basically. After you pull the mask, you've gotta trim off the flashing, Dremel it down. So there's just like some little stuff for Dremeling latex and cutting latex and stuff like that that I'll show you. So this mask was sculpted by my friend Donnie McCurry. It's a Frankenstein monster, obviously, a Karloff. He gave this to me a long time ago and I haven't had a chance to paint it, but I wanna paint it soon, so I'm gonna trim all this flashing off. This came out of a 2-piece mold. Mask like this came out of a 1-piece mold. So you can see I have like flashing down here, and then this is also a 1-piece, you know, there's a half mask, so this needs to get trimmed too. So let's start off easy. I'm just gonna jump in on the hag real quick. With cutting latex, you wanna like pull it or stretch it out basically, and then it'll make making these cuts a lot easier and cleaner. With this, I'm not too worried about this looking like crazy clean, because these get a hood and hair, so like this spot's really not going to be seen ever. If I were to just try to like cut it, it would be like really choppy, but if you stretch it like that, let the stretching always do the cutting. So I kind of went all the way around, and I'm just going to fix some little, you know, mistakes. You know, it's a little jagged right there, it's fine. When I do the half masks, I always glue in a little piece of like this bed foam. It makes it easier to display later for the customer, but also just like for painting and all that. Like that's why I glued it in before trimming this time, just so I could hang it up here, like, because I knew we were doing this video. And I glue it in with just latex, just the same mask making latex. If you did do the baby powder, you'd want to just wash that off with water first. Just spray a couple bits of water and wipe that off before you glue on the latex. Otherwise, like, it's not going to want to stick to the baby powder. I've pulled a lot of masks out of this mold at this point, so it gets these little like tiny positives, these little moles or whatever. And so I'll go in and I'll just Dremel those off. Usually like your seam line would be like that, and you'd pull it and stretch it and try to cut it pretty close. And the best tool for that I've found is these Cuticle Scissors. You can see they go up at an angle. So what you can do is, as you're cutting, you can get really close up to the mask. But again, I'm stretching it, and then I'm gonna go right up against it. And as I'm cutting, I'm like pulling more. I'm not just holding it there and then cutting. You wanna just continuously be stretching it. You're obviously closing the scissors up, but you're almost doing the cutting by like pulling it. So like, even if it doesn't look like I'm stretching, I almost always am. So I more or less just gotta get like as close as possible at this step, because like I said, I am gonna Dremel. You might like want to wear goggles when you Dremel, especially if you're doing something like metal. If you're Dremeling something metal, you definitely wanna wear like eye protection. With the latex, not that big of a deal. That's another thing, if I can't get it with my fingers enough to stretch, I can kind of fold it like that, and then still, like, as much as possible, just go right along the base of it, so the scissors are still flat up against it, basically like that. So I said, you know, Donnie made this, but his company is Monster Man 37, and so I just noticed he sculpted a little 37 in there, so that's fun. So now we're gonna bust out the Dremel. Honestly, I suggest just getting a Dremel that plugs in. I just haven't sprung for one yet. They work a lot better with like the consistency with your speed of the Dremel spinning and all that stuff. Before I start, I just want to talk about the tip. There's a lot of different Dremel tips for different things. This one is for like sanding and stuff like that, basically. Now, usually if you get a kit, it'll come with this. This is the felt tip, and this is also felt. This will work, but I like this style better. You can go on Amazon or wherever, just look up felt tip Dremel. So like a pack of these will last a really, really long time. So with the Dremel, you want to have your hand like inside, and you're kind of pushing against, you know, so you're kind of like, my finger's right there, and I'm gonna be like Dremeling against it, and then you're gonna go on the sideways, you know, sideways like pattern basically, so that you're not messing up this detail. You're only catching the highest point. The direction that it's spinning is the direction that I'm moving. You can see it wants to, see that, like, it wants to go that way. And this does just kind of take some practice as far as not, you know, messing your mask up. So you do have to kind of go at this with a degree of confidence for it to be successful. So don't be afraid of hurting yourself. Like, I just touched it and all it really did was get rid of all the crap that was on my finger. Like, it's not just gonna like eat into your finger. Now, if you're using the cut wheel, obviously it's a little different than that. Of course, you want to be careful. I would say the main thing with safety on this is, again, trying not to get all this material that you're taking off in your eye. One thing as well with this is a lot of people use a wood burning tool. You can look it up on like eBay or whatever, just like burning tool or wood burning tool. And I have one, but I haven't had a chance to really play with it enough to, you know, confidently just show you how to use it. So you can see here there's like some really thick stuff. I would normally just go in on that and Dremel it away, and I will, but I'm gonna, at least because my Dremel's dying, I'm gonna try to get to the end of this seam line. So now it's covered in all this crap. It's got all the material that I Dremeled off all over it. So I'm gonna just beat it down and try to get it off, and try to just get as much of it off with your hand as possible. All right, and then I'll go in for a second pass now that I can see it. No, so that's the seam line, and that's, you know, like if you do a two-piece mold, you're gonna have to do that, or use the wood burning tool. This I know came out of an Ultracal mold, but he's also probably done like 20 or 30 pulls or so of this mask probably. So there are some little bubbles that have happened in certain little areas, and you can just burn those off real quick with the Dremel. I'm just gonna go in and bust out these little blemishes. They're really no big deal. Positives are easier to take care of than negatives, like a hole. So it was really thin right there where I Dremeled, and so when it took that little bit away, I made a little hole right there. That's no big deal. I'll just patch that with a tiny bit of latex and a toothpick. But even on the eye, so here's where I want to be really careful. I want my eye to be as smooth as possible, so I want to go in really lightly and just get those little guys. That took me 5 minutes or so, and she's pretty much good to paint. I'm gonna fill that hole, but for the most part, that's, you know, no big deal at all. Yeah, this one's got the same kind of thing. I'm just gonna go around and clean up these little air bubbles. I wanna be careful in spots with like detail. You know, the hair, I'm not too worried about it. The hair's gonna be black, but these spots that are actually on his face, I don't wanna mess them up with the Dremel. But again, you can see these little bumps around here. I'm just gonna carefully just get rid of them. All right, so that's gonna do it for this week's Mask Monday. Hopefully you learned a little bit about using the Dremel and the Cuticle Scissors. Again, these come in super handy, Cuticle Scissors, and then get a Dremel that is not battery powered. This thing's hot, it's dying, and it dies really fast. So those are the two main takeaways I would say. Get Cuticle Scissors, get a Dremel that plugs in, maybe even get a wood burner. But, you know, look up safety stuff on that. That thing's a lot more dangerous than a Dremel. And like, share, subscribe, visit us at nightmaretoys.com, and I'll see you next week for another Mask Monday.